Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents As You Look by Verónica Gutiérrez. Narrated by Kyla García. Cómo te ves me vi, cómo me ves te verás. Dicho mexicano. As you look, I looked. As you see me, you will be seen. Mexican saying. Chapter 1. Friday, 3:23 a.m. I used to think dreams were just your brain rebooting for the night. Not a big deal. Until they were. Then I wanted them to go away, but they kept coming. Wouldn't leave me alone. That may have been the biggest gift my mom ever gave me, but I didn't want to believe it for the longest time. On this night, I woke in a cold sweat. Not the hot hormonal one of my cycle, so I knew the time without looking, but I checked anyway. 3:23 a.m. Again. Chingado. I kept my voice low so as not to wake Sydney. I'd never understood how she could sleep through low-flying LAPD helicopters, but startle awake at a creaking floorboard. She'd once explained it was due to her time in Afghanistan, but I thought it had more to do with growing up in LA. I stayed in bed and reached for the comforter, careful not to pull it away from her, and stared at the ceiling fan's faint outline in the dark. What was that dream? And why had I felt faint at the end of it? That was new. I tried to recall if I'd ever felt that in other dreams, but nothing came to mind. After several attempts at a relaxation exercise Sydney had taught me, I gave up on images of my body melting and returned to my catatonic examination of the ceiling fan. Wait, was that Joey melting in my dream? Was I remembering that right? Creepy. I was still trying to remember when Sydney stirred ahead of her 6 o'clock alarm. She moaned from deep in her throat the way she always did upon waking, and turned to kiss me lightly on the lips. I loved that she kissed me before getting out of bed. Now that she was in attending, her schedule at the hospital was more sane, the morning kisses more regular. "Earth to Yolanda," she said when I continued to stare at the ceiling after returning her kiss. "Awake long?" "Since 3:23. Uh-oh. The juju's back." I gave her a non-committal grunt. "Be careful today, okay?" "No worries, love. Just collecting on a workers' comp case and dropping by Dad's. You coming to happy hour at Mel's later?" Our group of Friday regulars would be at the Highland Park Dive. "Yeah, but don't change the subject. Promise me no heroics today, okay? No climbing into lockers and fighting off bat-wielding men." She smiled, propping herself up on her left elbow, but her eyes turned serious. She rested her head on her upturned hand, her do-rag sliding a bit off-center. "I promise." I didn't want her to worry. I knew she was thinking of the last time I'd woken up at that time. That night, I'd brushed off an odd claustrophobic feeling, but later, while on stakeout at a baseball field, I'd hidden in a utility shed to record and expose a fake shoulder injury. Some nosy little leaguer made me, and my subject took a bat to the shed. I got shaky video on my phone, timed my escape between swings, and got away with just a few scratches and bruises from a less than graceful tumbling exit. Ace move by your friendly neighborhood private eye. "What else?" Sydney brought me back from the memory. I yawned. "What do you mean?" "A dream? A feeling? Just one dream." I sighed, knowing she wouldn't let it go. "I was browsing for a book for Joey's birthday. That's all." "And then?" I said that was all. I left out the part about Joey's image melting away. I wasn't sure of my recollection, and I didn't want to get into it anyway. Sydney connected these early morning wake-ups to my mom because they'd started after her death. A few weeks earlier, Sydney had started pressing me to work through these issues, but I didn't want to dredge up old regrets and nagging guilt. "There's always more to these dreams, babe." I'd never liked that term of endearment before hearing it from her. I liked it fine now. "So then?" "Well, I felt a little dizzy. Must have been because I was in the kids section, and kids have cooties. I hoped making light of it would get her to drop the subject. It didn't. "Look at me," Sydney said in that soft voice that always got my attention. "Turn your head and look me in the eye." I did as instructed. "What else?" That's it. Just felt like I was losing my balance. "And? Are you interrogating me?" "Trying to get you to remember all of it." She caressed the scar on my left arm and kissed me on the forehead. "Okay, I'll play." I hoped to get the retelling over quickly so she'd leave me alone. I was at Espacio 1839 over by the Mariachi Plaza. I was looking for bilingual chapter books. Everything's fine, and then I get a little vertigo when I move a dust cloth from the shelf. Funny, I just remembered that. Wonder what that was doing there. I stopped and looked at her, but she only nodded so as not to interrupt. That's pretty much it. If I'd mentioned the image of Joey melting, she'd never let it go. "How did the dream end?" Kinda like a movie? You know how things fade to black between scenes? Like that. Nothing special. Feel anything other than vertigo at the end of the dream? Now that you mention it, maybe a little anxious. But really, I think it's just because I haven't gotten around to getting Joey's gift. I've been so busy. I think maybe you should consider your brother's advice and at least give this stuff the benefit of the doubt. Aw, Sid, you know I'm not into Jesse's woo-woo stuff. Dreams are just your brain rebooting for the night. No, more like clearing your browser history. You click on clear, and you move on. Sydney frowned, so I tried to explain. Otherwise, your brain gets clogged up, and you can't focus on what's important, you know? My voice trailed off, Mom coming to mind. I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to block out the memory. Sydney picked up on it. "Babe, look at me," she said again. She caressed the side of my neck with the back of her warm brown fingers, a gesture I usually loved, but not so much today. I opened my eyes to meet her gaze. "Can you repeat after me? Please?" She waited for me to nod. "I did not kill my mother." When I hesitated, she insisted. "Say it. Please." "I did not kill my mother," I repeated. Why is she making me do this? "I am not responsible for her death." "Why are you doing this?" My voice caught and tears welled. "Please," she said in a near whisper. "I am not responsible for her death." Tears flowed. "You're lucky I love you, 'cause now you're pissing me off, okay?" "I'm sorry." She held me tight. "And I love you. That's why I needed to hear you say it, even though your eyes tell me you still blame yourself." She ran her fingers through my spiky bedhead hair and gave me a sad smile. "I'll let it go, but only if you promise to check in with Carmen on Joey and talk to Jesse about it too, okay?" "Okay." I held her close, confident there was nothing to the dream. Carmen would have called if there'd been anything up with Joey. She'd been my best friend since 3rd grade, when we'd agreed to baptize each other's kids and be comadres. So far, being a godmother was enough motherhood for me. "Okay, then." Sydney ran her thumb over my wet cheek. Her alarm sounded with its gently rising trill, and she leaned over to stop it before it reached the annoying level. "Gotta hit the shower if I'm gonna check in on the new residents, but promise me you'll be careful today, okay?" She gave me a peck on the cheek. "Always." She gave me another peck, this time on the lips, accompanied by a concerned frown, but she said nothing else and got out of bed. I lay back with my forearm over my eyes and tried to block out the guilt and shame that engulfed me every time I thought of Mom's death. Sydney was right. I did blame myself. It was my fault. If I'd focused on what I'd already known at the time, instead of chasing a stupid dream, Mom would be alive today. I remembered it like yesterday. The morning of Mom's funeral, I got a call from the highway patrol investigator. The man who'd run my mom off the road had been killed instantly when his car crashed into a freeway pylon. They'd had trouble identifying him because he'd used several aliases. Blood drained from my face at the mention of 3 names all too familiar to me. An identity thief I'd been tracking. I'd followed a stupid dream vision about his location instead of the one real lead I had, a license plate that could have led me to him earlier. Stupid, 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 I'd said over and over, pounding my forehead with my fist after that call. Sydney had tried to convince me that I couldn't have done anything to prevent the road rage accident, that it was a freak coincidence. The guy had no way of knowing I had conducted internet searches for him. But I wouldn't listen. I was numb with guilt throughout the funeral, and went through the motions of accepting condolences without feeling anything. Sydney told me later that she was afraid I wasn't letting myself grieve. But how could I? I was too busy blaming myself. I vowed then and there to be done with this intuition and dream crap and stick to the facts. If I'd done that, I would have traced the old license plate, found the guy, kept him off the road somehow, and saved my mother. She'd be alive. She was dead because I hadn't done detective work the way they drilled into us at the academy a lifetime ago. Maybe it was a good thing I'd left the LAPD. Maybe I wasn't cut out to be a cop after all. No, I was a good cop. Damned good. But that was before I'd been shot, long before all this juju stuff surfaced. I fidgeted under the covers, antsy with guilt all over again. Sydney may get me to say otherwise, but I was never going to believe I wasn't responsible for Mom's death. I sat up and tried to slow my breathing, biting my lower lip. "Sid," I called out when she stepped out of the shower. "Why'd you do that? Why'd you make me remember? I am not going to repeat that mistake. It will never happen again." I wiped a lingering tear. "Babe?" She stepped back into the bedroom wrapped in a towel, her smooth dark skin glistening with moisture. "I just think the juju can help with the guilt." I started to protest, but flopped back onto my pillow when she continued. "You know deep down that it wasn't your fault, but you won't acknowledge it." She sat beside me on the bed, her own scar, my Taliban tattoo, she called it, highlighting her right biceps. "I just want you to be all of you, love." She placed her hand over my heart, her kind brown eyes locked on mine. "I know I can't tell you how to grieve, but acknowledging anything, even this psychic stuff, has got to be better than that unjustified guilt. It's been almost a year." I knew she was trying to help, but the psychic thing was a step too far. Please, I am not psychic. And even if I had some, what do you and Jesse call it? Psychic intuition? It could never be reliable. It's just a distraction. I sat up again and hugged her. "No, love, don't worry. This juju stuff's not for me. Besides, it would never hold up in court. I'd be laughed off the witness stand. Nah, if Mom's death taught me anything, it's that we shouldn't let the juju get in the way. And it won't. I'll call Carmen now. You'll see. Joey's fine." I dialed Carmen on speaker and heard road noise when she answered. "Hey, mujer. Off to work already?" I tried to sound unconcerned, calling her woman, one of the terms we used for each other. "Buenos dias, comadre. Have a deposition downtown. Gotta get in early and kick some butt. My client waited until last night to tell me about another witness. Can you believe it? Chingado. What's up?" Just checking in on Joey's party tomorrow." The little white lie couldn't hurt. "What time should we be there? What can we bring?" "Ah, you've turned into your mother, Yolanda." I felt her smile through the phone. She would never arrive to a party empty-handed. No Ávila would. What can I say? "Well, now that you mention it, how about your potato salad? Or Sydney's awesome mac and cheese? Either would be fine. Say 1 o'clock? Joey'll be getting hyper before the party, and you and Sydney are so good with him. Carbs and entertainment for a 6-year-old. You got it. Good luck with the depot. Gracias, mujer. We hung up, and I raised my eyebrows at Sydney, feeling justified. She gave a curt nod. You'll still be careful today, right? She said, standing up. Absolutely. I jumped out of bed, pretending to feel much better about the rest of my day. I knew it would take most of it to shake off the resurfaced guilt. I'd done it before. All it took was concentrating on my work, keeping busy. The thought made me feel a little better. Perhaps prematurely. Chapter 2. Friday, 7 a.m. After Sydney left for work, I showered and made some final edits to yet another workers' comp fraud report for an insurance company client. More and more of these cases were coming in, and I was beginning to understand why workers' comp reform had become a hot political issue in California. It certainly didn't hurt my business, so I wasn't as concerned about the politics as were Carmen and her labor union clients. A few more of these insurance company cases, and I might start looking for a place to hang a shingle instead of working from home. Then I'd be more established and out from under the cloud of my short-lived LAPD career. I delivered my findings to a happy client in West Covina. I would close out the case altogether after the inevitable police reports and court testimony, if necessary. But for now, I patted the check in my pocket with satisfaction. On my way back to Boyle Heights, I was glad I was early and would have a chance to talk to Jessie before our after-school snack, a Friday tradition Mom had established when I was in high school, an attempt to hang on to some family time as we got older, and Dad had the flexibility at work to drop by. Now we did our best to indulge Dad on those days. Inching along the westbound 10, I thought I'd make the conversation with Jessie a quick one, because we both knew where I stood on letting dreams dictate our actions. He insisted I was in denial about psychic messages, and when I said I just didn't want to think about it, I got a lecture on some philosopher who equated avoidance with denial. I wasn't looking forward to resurfacing the argument, but I'd promised Sydney, and now my good mood diminished along with the sunlight behind a dirty dishwater sky. June gloom had set in early, and a fire raging in Griffith Park only made the air quality worse. Like everyone but the firefighters, I wished for the cleansing Santa Ana winds as I crept along in traffic. The mid-afternoon traffic toward downtown was almost as heavy as the early rush hour traffic heading away from it. Unusual, even by LA standards. Either there was an accident ahead, or I was caught in one of the traffic waves emanating from the fire 2 freeways away. I switched my satellite radio from Mexican boleros to classic rock. The Rolling Stones are better for dealing with bottlenecks. An electronic freeway sign flashed ahead, too far away to make out the message. Something about the fire, no doubt. Creeping closer, I could make out the traffic picking up again after the sign. I was about to curse the slow readers and the high-tech distraction when I read the Amber Alert. Child abduction, silver Jaguar, and a license number. Well, at least the Jaguar made it sound more like a custody dispute than a pedophile case. Pedophile kidnappers don't usually drive Jags. The news had been reporting on a serial kidnapper taking little boys in the desert county east of Los Angeles. He hadn't ventured into the LA area as far as I knew. And like most of my friends, I hoped he wasn't Black or Latino. My stomach tightened, something other than a pedophile and fear of resurgent hate crimes nagging at me, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I switched the radio to an all-news station, but didn't hear anything about the Amber Alert before reaching Dad's house. My brother's beat-up Honda Civic blocked the driveway. He was reaching the porch steps when I pulled up to the curb and lowered the passenger window. "Road hog!" I shouted. Jesse turned around, glanced at his car, and smiled. My 26-year-old brother, younger than me by 4 years, was home from school. Sometimes I wondered whether he went to class at all. Who would have time to do that and be involved in every political cause on the East Side and on UCLA's Westwood campus? "You should move your carcancha up the driveway before Dad gets home." "Ditching class again?" I stepped out of my good-as-new green Subaru Forester. I hadn't wanted a black car, but dark green looks black at night and is ideal for nighttime surveillance. Jessie ignored my suggestion, but stopped at the porch steps. Friday, no class. Jesus observes the Sabbath. He used the English pronunciation of his given name the way he sometimes did to mess with people on campus. Jewish, you know? The Sabbath doesn't start until sundown, you dingaling, I teased in the corny way we'd both picked up from Dad. So? I'm a few hours early. But who can tell with all the smoke? He looked up at the sky, then turned back to me as I approached. You're early, too. What's up? Just being a good hija, checking in on her father, I lied. And before he completed his eye roll, I added, Actually, I was stuck in traffic and needed to pee real bad. Nice to know we're a convenient potty break on the great road of life. Hey, at least I'm on the road while you're still stuck in park as a professional student. Who says I'm stuck? I'm well on my way to becoming the most renowned philosopher of our time. He held his head high, right hand on his chest in mock superiority. Well, in your own mind anyway. At least you've got the hair for it. I tousled his dark, unruly curls. I envied his and Mom's curls as much as he envied my and Dad's straight hair. I was proud of my brother, even though he could be a bit strange at times. Not more so than any other philosophy graduate student, I supposed. Moving ahead of him, I unlocked the front door, put my keys and phone on the small foyer table inside, and headed for the restroom. Our father was still at the mechanic shop he managed and wouldn't be home for another hour or so. He'd go back to work later and close the shop at 8 o'clock. Hey, I do need to tell you about something real quick, I called over my shoulder. But let's surprise Dad and cook something ourselves. Hey, let's not surprise him and order out for something edible. When I returned to the living room, Jesse was on his way out the door. He responded to the question in my eyes with, Carnitas Michoacán. My brother sometimes spoke in shorthand, but I understood. He was going 3 blocks to Whittier and Soto and would be back with a bag of carnitas, chopped cilantro and onion, salsa, and fresh hot tortillas. All the fixings for perfect tacos. Just as well. The only fresh thing in the refrigerator was probably Jesse's beer or Dad's milk. After setting the table, I put on an old Norah Jones CD and lingered over the family pictures on the fireplace mantel. One of them was of Mom and me at my academy graduation. I wiped dust off the glass with my finger, pausing over Mom's image. She'd tried to be supportive of my career, but her concern for my safety had always been a source of tension between us. She was relieved when I left the department, but only after very supportive indignation that the cabrones will regret losing me. Her protective maternal instincts outweighed everything. Mom battled similar contradictions when Sydney and I moved in together the year I left the LAPD, and again when we got married without telling anyone but our witnesses. We hadn't hesitated after the U.S. Supreme Court legalized gay marriage in June of 2015. Like most gay couples in California, we remembered the 2008 legal window when 60,000 Californians wed before voters took away the right. In the end, Mom had approved of the idea of our marriage, before the U.S. Supreme Court had, if only because she thought it was good to have someone take care of me, especially a doctor, when I left the department. She'd become even more supportive as our national politics turned less civil and more hateful. When Jesse drove up again, I remembered I'd put my phone on silent during my meeting with my client and had forgotten to switch it back. I picked it up and saw that I had messages. I dialed my voicemail and heard Carmen's voice as Jesse came in the door. Yoli? Where the hell are you? Carmen never called me Yoli. She preferred Yolanda. Something was wrong. I need your help. Joey's missing. The skin on the back of my neck went cold as I visualized the Amber Alert I'd just seen. Call me at home. God, where are you? My jaw tightened at the desperation in her voice. The voicemail icon on my phone indicated 2 more messages. I called Carmen without checking them. Jesse turned back from the bags of food as I dialed. What's wrong? The look on my face must have given me away, but I didn't answer because Carmen picked up, her voice loud in my ear. Oh God, Yoli, it's about time. Joey's missing. I know that cabron has him, so I tried to teach him a lesson with an Amber Alert, but the cops just picked him up and he says he doesn't have him. I bet he's at the house in Rosarito, or the cabin in Big Bear. But God, I don't know, Yoli. I need your help. She said everything in one breath before I got a word in. I pictured the petite Dynamo, my dad's name for her. Wild, dark curly hair made her seem taller than her 5 feet 3 inches, but she looked even taller when upset. Carmen, stop. Breathe. I tried to stop her before she rattled off again in incomprehensible sobs. Carmen, I tried again. To Jessie, I whispered, Joey's missing. Go. Jessie handed me a styrofoam shell with a couple of tacos he'd hurriedly put together, deep concern etched on his face. I took the food automatically, knowing I wouldn't eat it. Call me as soon as you know more. He placed his hand on my shoulder and looked me in the eye. It's not good, Yoli, he said, his voice a hoarse whisper. I ignored him. Carmen, I'm coming over. Be there in 15. I hated when he did that. How did he know how bad it was? I rushed out the door and tried to shake off his foreboding, but my mind went back to my dream. Shit. Chapter 3. Earlier Friday, 7:25 a.m. On his way to school, Joey looked out the backseat window, wishing Mom and Dad would get back together. He usually liked to see the changing storefronts along Sunset Boulevard and guess what kind of business was coming in. But today he barely noticed them, his thoughts on his family. The adults all told him he needed to be a big boy, except for Nina Yolanda. His godmother always told him it wasn't his fault, and said that adults sometimes needed a break from each other. She said it was okay to be mad and sad, and to punch his pillow and even cry if he wanted, because adults did that too sometimes. Joey only cried at night when nobody was looking. He didn't tell anyone but his Nina, and she said it was okay and never told on him. He wished Nina would tell Mom and Dad to stop fighting. One of his friends at school said this separation thing was what happened before his parents got a divorce. He didn't want Mom and Dad to get a divorce. He wanted things to be like before. But these days he liked staying over with Nina Yolanda and Sydney more than with Mom or Dad. They didn't treat him like a baby. They asked him what he thought about stuff and really listened. The only other adult who did that was Mrs. Goldberg, his kindergarten teacher. Dad asked him about stuff too, but usually stuck to school or the building models in his office. It was fun playing with the models, but Nina and Sydney always wanted to know if he was okay and what he thought about things. The other day, while watching an old Aladdin movie, Sydney had asked him if he had any wishes. Joey had only 3. He wished Mom and Dad would get back together. He wished he had a puppy, and he wished he could rewind life. Rewind life? Sydney had asked.
Yeah, so like when you have a birthday party, you can have it over and over again.
Sydney had smiled at that and said, You're a big thinker, Joe. Sydney was the only person who called him Joe. He liked that. He couldn't remember everything else Sydney had said, but he did remember something about rewind people being better than fast-forward people. Joey wasn't sure what that meant, but he thought maybe his parents were fast-forward people, because they seemed to want more and more from each other, and from him. Why so quiet, Joey? Dad asked at a stoplight, looking at him in the rearview mirror.
Just thinking about rewind people and fast-forward people.
His dad smiled and wrinkled the space between his eyebrows in the mirror, before turning back to the road. You're a weird kid, Joey, but in a smart way, I think. Joey thought it was Dad's way of being nice. He was fun lots of times, especially when they played chess and soccer, but Dad thought he was a little kid. He was going to turn 6 tomorrow. He wasn't a baby anymore. But Dad sometimes came through for him, too.
Dad, you're gonna drop me off at the church so I can walk to school, right?
Course, big boy. His dad smiled at him. And don't forget, your mom's picking you up after school.
I know, Dad.
Joey groaned. He hated having to go back and forth between his parents. Of course, he didn't tell anyone except his Nina and Sydney. He stared out the window until they pulled up in front of St. Martin's. Okay.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?